To have thought through it at least more granularly probably helps.
True.
Because otherwise you're just guessing, right? You're just guessing that, oh, this should be my valuation. This will be like, you're guessing here too, but you're guessing with a little more meat to it, I
With
guess.
structure. Let's
Yeah,
face it,
guessing
it's
with
just
structure.
like guessing with structure, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
The
that,
more informed guess.
more informed guess. Yeah,
more informed. Oh, I like this. This is
yeah.
typically Professor Lutra here. Informed guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Niels would be fine, by the
Yeah.
way.
You guys, seriously. Okay, so how did we do with all of the funny reading?
I ran through most of it, so I haven't given much time
Yeah.
personally. You all will have to educate me.
All right. Well, I did the five pieces,
Yeah.
and I think the video about the tokens um, didn't deliver so much news for us.
Yeah.
I would guess,
I agree.
This one?
at least.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You'll have to watch her screen, I think.
Oh yeah. I'm sharing my screen so we can refer to stuff quickly if we need to.
So I think there's not that much to discuss about the general introduction to the logic or the possibilities of tokens. For me, the most useful piece of work has been the governance of blockchain networks and other DAOs. Part two of who was it? Washkimir, I think. Because at the end she popped up with some serious questions, and I think this might be a good starting point for our discussion, because it's all about those trade-offs that are there, either on the blockchain level or on the application or DAO level. And it's a fight or a struggle, let's say, between balancing of interest and power. And I don't think we already have those solutions to those questions or trade-offs.
Yeah. In that regard, I also thought it was also High Seeker. Good morning. In that regard, I also thought that this article about the last article, no blockchain as an
Oh, I
island.
love this one. Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
this one was also really good because it gives you like more of an understanding of, hey, this is still being executed on top of TCP/IP protocols, right?
Yeah.
The normal internet layer. Then you have the blockchain layer. Even though a blockchain might be immutable, there are several factors that actually in the real world very much contradict that. And then you build in on top of those two layers your decentralized application. How decentralized is it then really, right? It's just like, it takes away like all the sparkles and the little like magic powder, right? That has been like kind of like puffed around it. And you're like,
Yeah.
wait, this is actually very true, right? It's like when we say decentralized, I think we often take, like, we talk much more about like the social way of interacting with these protocols maybe, then we actually talk about how decentralized is the technology. It's the same with Ethereum blockchain, right? There's parts of it that is still being run on Amazon Web Service. So how decentralized can it be, right? It's not that there is something that's 100% truly decentralized in a way, or can be guaranteed, like, I think it's a good understanding to get to. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and even the title itself, right? No blockchain is an island, because it's like we are not, we are still embedded in the context of the fact that the internet is still a thing. The nations are still controlling the ISPs um, that govern the flow of information through the internet. So all of these things still exist, and just because your particular protocol might be decentralized does not change the fact that the overall system is not. But again, like, I think all of that comes down to, yeah, I mean, like, the article was interesting in the sense that it did point these things out to me which weren't as obvious at least in the narratives that we've been told. But at the end of the day, does it matter like what level of decentralization are we actually shooting for in most of these things? Because um, I don't know, like I feel like is it really relevant if we are not completely decentralized? Um, Maybe, I don't know. Like, can we ever be completely decentralized, and why do you want to be completely decentralized? I think these questions still stand up, right?
I think the answer to this is like looking at the extremes of the world, right? So let's let's look at this like as nation states, right? Because that was an example in one of the prior articles that we had. So if we look at this from like the perspective of, let's say, Germany, right? Then, well, you know, there's like not a ton of corruption going on. There's probably corruption going on, but it's not crazy, right? Things run smoothly. Things run by the law, not by like some kind of criminal organization. So I guess the desperation for complete decentralization is not very high, right? There's like not really a demand. But looking at countries like Peru, for example, where the corruption level is absolute insanity, right? And nothing in this country is being done for the people. Nothing in this country ever moves forward. So just an example is last year alone, $60 million were not invested, right, from the actual household budget of the government. Why was it not invested? Because of corruption, because of you know, people who are afraid to move an inch forward, right? Because in the end, in our like hierarchical political systems, even though the idea is democracy, but they are run on hierarchies, right? And often there's like one person, like the US president as well, right? There's one person on which like all the blame falls, all the power falls, right? And it gets like indefinitely more harder to actually come to the point of executing like an idea or a proposal. So I think the desperation level is something that we have to look at when we think about like what is the need for decentralization. So in a country like Peru, decentralization could change everything. It could change the whole future of this country, right? Because like, so for example, one guy I met at East Denver, he runs a project that's called XNet, and XNet is essentially a decentralized mobile carrier system. It's run by people, like all kinds of people, right? And they've launched a prototype in San Francisco, and he told me like, yeah, it's really hard to like, you know, make people understand like why this matters, because they, you know, they have like not terrible like internet, like the phones, they have gotten used to it, right? All of this. And I told him, dude, if you were to start launching this in the middle of Peru, because Peru is like this huge land strip, meaning infrastructure hasn't gotten to most places, you know? It's not a thing. Like there's like a ton of like little towns and little cities that really struggle with internet coverage and cell phone coverage, right? So I told him, maybe, just maybe, I know it's convenient to launch this like right next like to yourself and use it, but maybe think about looking for investment in countries that actually do have a real need for this, right? And that's not the US, I'm so sorry. You know, that's definitely not a country that has like a desperate need for it. So I think this is, sorry, I will stop now with my little monologue, but I think this is how we need to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, you might remember our discussion from last week when we talked about, you know, multi-level governance systems and compared it to a federal state. One of the main reasons that, well, there is some kind of economic theory of federalism, and well, one of the arguments to propose to have a more decentralized kind of state architecture is about because you have better fulfillment of the preferences of the people at the local, yeah, or even at the regional level, and the allocation of resources will be much better if we have more decentralized structures, because the people at the top often don't know what's the problem at the local level, right? So I would say you're somehow right. And if we turn away from developed countries like the US or Germany or whatever, then there is even more need for a decentralized structure.
No, but I mean, I feel like maybe the vocabulary that is something we're lacking here because the way I'm thinking about it, like a very good example. I don't know if y'all are aware of 4chan or Reddit and Twitter, let's say, right? Three different platforms that exist.
4chan, seriously, you're bringing up
No,
4chan.
I'm trying to raise a point here.
Established institution. Okay, fine.
No, but the point I'm trying to raise is that all of these are social media they're social media which have different forms of governance. Like Reddit seems to have this community structure, right? There are subreddits, and there's a moderator in the subreddit that takes care of the kind of stuff that happens, and the rules that are set by the moderator and the overall government. So overall Reddit itself, and then you have 4chan, which seems like completely like what do you say? Completely, everybody's anonymous. There are practically no laws apart from like child pornography and things like that. And uh, I think and when you look at maybe something like Twitter, which is centrally in some sense moderator, uh, I feel like all three of these, like 4chan is the most decentralized in theory, but it's the most terrible also because there's just absolutely no way to govern individual communities or boards. That people show their worst sides of themselves on 4chan
Yeah.
because everything's about like just outrageous stuff. And since you're completely, what do you say, your identity is hidden, you can pretty much do anything there. So I feel like just decentralization doesn't help at all. Like you have to, there's some balance that needs to be struck, which is, I think the word decentralization is confusing to me. I think it's more about letting communities govern themselves. I think that if we call that decentralization, then yes, maybe. Like, yeah, so.
This is actually a really good key point. You know, when I was at ETH Denver participating at a hackathon and we were looking for a name for our decentralized, fully decentralized application, right? I asked myself, like, what's the etymology of the word decentralized? I didn't know where decentralized first emerged. Did you guys? Probably not, right? So it turns out decentralization was first picked up by two German dudes in response to the French Revolution. And it was about decentralizing democracy, right? Or decentralizing, governmental structures. And they didn't it's not like they really discussed this, but this is how the word was first mentioned, right? And then the person who really picked this up was a French dude, right, who survived the French Revolution. His name is Alexis de Tocqueville. Sounds like a really evil name, to be honest. And he picked this up in regards to discussing how America, like the US, in the 1800s worked, right? So really at the beginning of its formation, in a sense.
It's a famous book.
It's a famous book, right?
Democracy and Society in America, or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Professor Lutra, good job. Got me points. So yeah, and I was kind of shocked because I asked a lot of people, like even mentors in ETH Denver, and I was like, hey, do you actually know where the word decentralized comes from, right? And a lot of them didn't know. And here comes the funny thing in a really short wrapper, but Alexis de Tocqueville essentially used decentralization to describe in a way that America's idea of democracy is great, right? But it comes with a lot of weaknesses. And he was like, the best way to avoid those weaknesses would be if everyone would be their own monarch. So he essentially went back, right? He was like, it's not about the fact that monarchy is bad, it's just the way it has been applied as of one person being the monarch. But if everyone would be their own monarch, being and acting self-responsibly, right? Then we wouldn't need to discuss this even. That was like his like. I mean, I'm making this really short because it's a long book, right? But this is essentially his claim, and this is why I went then back to the iris, which is a symbol for fleur de lis, blah 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 blah. This is how I designed the logo. But the point is, this dude lived like 200 years ago, and he essentially already described what we are discussing here today, right? Because what we really want is a mind shift. It's not enough to have a technology, but we need a mind shift. We need people to realize the next layer of the internet asks you to act self-responsible. There is no one that you can just conveniently sue because you fucked something up, right? It's not that. So I think, talking decentralization, what we probably really need is the mind shift of accepting, hey, I need to start being responsible for what I do on-chain and off-chain, right? And no matter if I'm connected with like my real name or my fake name, and this is also why, when you mentioned fortune, I was like, yeah, that's the fucking, like that's the absolute 100% contradiction of all of this. It's horrible. It is.
Yeah, no, but like obviously we can't get away from public sense making. Like that is the core. I mean, without
True.
a base assumption that humans have some kind of rights, responsibilities, and duties, and like they have some kind of they're governing themselves in some way. You can't even begin to think about how, because if everyone's just selfish and purely rational in terms of like the way we use it in some theories, obviously the entire system will not work at all. That I agree with, but I feel like when we look at these social media communities, I find it very fascinating. There's so much to learn from it because the way people behave completely changes. Like I'm completely different on Twitter, the way I'm on YouTube comment sections, and the way I'm on, I don't know, WhatsApp, I guess. Like, it seems like my behavior, Instagram, my behavior changes. It's like these platforms have so much control, they change the way we interact with humans.
Communicate.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if we go a bit back in time, compare writing a letter, just with a pen, and writing an email. And I think you can see those differences. Yeah. A lot of the emails, I receive, well, they are not that formally correct or that nice. They are, well, I don't know, more goal oriented, right? You wouldn't write a letter to somebody in the way you write an email. And now, fast forward, your behavior with regard to social media might change. I mean, you use a lot more, emojis and so on, and shortcuts, yeah, instead of words. And that changes something, yeah? So that plays an important part.
Isn't that kind of funny though? Like the fact we have made stuff shorter, even though we have an easier way of accomplishing it. Isn't this like so
Yeah.
funny in like
Yeah,
itself as a
yeah.
contradiction?
No, it was there was this app which I was using in the middle because I was really struggling with this was the exact thing I was struggling with. That communications were so short and quick, and you ask a question, you have an answer. Like it's so quick, everything's so quick and fast, and I guess it's hard. I was imagining how good writing a long letter to your friend after a while would be. Like, so there's an app called Slowly, and their entire thing is that depending on where you are in the world, they send that digital message at the rate at which a ship would have taken to reach that place. So it takes like 2 days or
Oh,
3 days
yes.
to reach, yeah. And honestly, all the communications of people out there are just long texts because you have to wait 3 days for the reply. So you're asking in depth about their life, figuring out like every detail about things because you want to make sure all of it is combined into that one message. And just fascinating how like these platforms change like the governance decisions of how things will function in some sense change our behavior completely, and it's the same person interacting on two different platforms and I'll write a completely different message here, and the kind of communication that'll come out, the kind of feeling that I'll have towards the person, everything changes based on just the decisions we make on like how to govern them. I'm is my idea of governance right here? Like, I think I'm still using the word governance because these are design decisions that they're protocols, like they are rules of the system that we are all adhering to. Is that still governance?
Smart contracts, right? You meant smart contracts? Yeah. I
No,
think
I'm saying like even like for the app to decide that it'll take 3 days for the message to reach. Just changing that, how quick a message receives or doesn't, isn't that a governance decision?
Yes,
not if it wasn't measured.
if we decide on the rule that
Yeah.
we want to have, let's say, some time elapsing between sending and receiving the message or the information, and we program something that is delaying this up to 1 day, 2 days, or 3 days, that would be a governance decision, yes.
But only if we
Because it
decide
is
on the
steering
rules.
our behavior, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
are
exactly.
rules that are somehow steering our behavior. So I would call it a governance decision, yes.
Also, can we quickly say, okay, Seeker and Shelpin, like just so you know, this discussion is always fiery, but don't feel afraid to fire back into the system, okay? Shelpin?
I'm not afraid, just taking it in. I'm just taking things in and like, yeah.
Fair enough.
You
It's the
guys are
first
talking about
session.
some interesting stuff, and I actually just found out about 4chan, so I'm taking notes of all these things and I'm checking them out. Like I'm actually in this.
I would not recommend checking it out. Maybe read about it. Don't go into it.
Yeah, for sure. It seems very scary actually.
Yeah, no, like some of the stuff is like some of the stuff I've seen there. I don't think I'm the same person anymore. Like it's scary stuff. Like anyway, can we? Do you want to go one by one through the articles and maybe just go through our thoughts?
Well, we can do that. Honestly, I only started like note taking with this one. I was like, damn, I should have taken notes. So I'm sorry for
Yeah.
this. There are no notes for this. But I will add them after the meeting. But those two articles in general, they were like very. This is like something. Sorry, this is something I have to add as like the only woman in this group since and forever, right? But it's kind of frustrating because Sherman actually writes absolutely fantastic articles, but I feel like she's the least exposed one in this whole context. Like she's there, I know, but like I feel she doesn't really get like the visibility she really deserves. Or at least
that way.
not
Okay.
here,
Yeah.
isn't it? Like her
No, but
articles
isn't
were
she
like.
a principle of or some like really high post in the Vienna what is it like?
Vienna Institute for Blockchain and Cryptocurrency or something like that it is
Yeah.
called.
It's part
But I
of
guess
the.
then she moved to Berlin. At least that's the last thing I know.
Okay.
Yeah. Because her articles are absolutely like well written, well researched, still written in a way for people who don't necessarily understand everything already. So I just think they're like they're outstanding in the way they're written. Well, that's just my opinion. But yeah, I missed out on actually taking down the notes. I will do this. I will add them. And you, Lutra, you said that essentially the last part was like for you something very important because she points out all of these questions. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Oh, well, yeah. At least I will try to. Well, I thought even if you want to push forward your own project or construct some kind of token economy around the DAO or something like that, you have to address those open questions. And when I read the article, I thought it's all about trade-offs. According to my opinion, yeah, it's how to balance, power, and how to align different kinds of interests. And I think every protocol or every DAO has somehow well, to develop a vision, which kind of balance you would like to have implemented. And I mean, that comes back to what Ruan already said, yeah? Maybe 100% decentralization isn't a good thing. Maybe it's better to have some, I don't know, yeah, central stance on something, and then give some power back to the majority, to the voters, or to third majority of voters. So this discussion, what are the strengths and weaknesses of on-chain versus off-chain governance? If you want to run it down, you have somehow to find a consensus about that. If we operate in a multi-stakeholder environment, yeah, for sure we will have different kind of interests. Yeah, someone wants more fee, others want, I don't know, higher transaction volume, and so on and so forth. So it's not that sure that the interests of all stakeholders are always aligned to a common goal. How to handle if we have different, ways to go forward. And of course, this discussion about how much really do we like code as law? Yeah? Do we need some super majority rule? Yeah? Even to break up censorship resistance or not? I mean, this discussion about the DAO hack well, there was something with the Oasis wallet, yeah, Oasis protocol. They changed something. Is it okay if not each and everybody can take part in such decisions? And as well, I found it very interesting, this kind of, there might arise some kind of dictatorship of experts, those who can read the code and can write the code always will have at least an informational advantage with regard to all other users. How to handle this one?
Yeah, the last point is super fascinating because definitely, the more technical we get, it's not even in the Web3 space, it's that how do we get adoption beyond like people who even understand, like most of India doesn't even have access to these technologies to begin with. They're barely understanding how to use a mouse and a keyboard. And the whole world is moving so fast. So all of these, discussions about the asymmetry of information, the asymmetry of knowledge and all of that, and it's getting more and more complicated over time. It's fascinating.
I think you're right on that regard. Like, we use Web3 as this like powerful opportunity to bring equality. But how equal can something be if you need to, let's say, invest 0.15 ETH to become a member of a DAO? 0.15 ETH might not seem to, too much for people in Europe, right? But 0.15 ETH in Peru means like almost a third of an average monthly payment. A third. That's a shitload of money, right?
It is.
I'm referencing the sum because I bought yesterday a little Nouns NFT to become part of the Nouns DAO, And I was like, yeah, it's really great, now I can make a proposal and, maybe push an initiative in Alana forward. But, on the other side, I was like, it's a fucked up system because we are back to square one.
Yeah, you have to have money in order to participate, right?
Yeah. So, I really like seeing initiatives that, for example, work on gasless networks, right? I really like seeing like all the stuff that's actually being, I think we talked about this, like the blockchains no one ever talks about, right? Cardano, Algorand, right? Like I really like seeing what's going on there because I think they have a much better like understanding of what the future needs, right? To actually thrive through that goal. But also we need, you know, to make this like a popular thing, right? We need mass adoption in. Oh, where did he go? Did he pop out? Did he bug out? No, he's gonna be back. But we also need like the advocates in here, right? And advocates, or like ambassadors, I should say, they usually come like with a popularity background. So even though, you know, CryptoPunks are fucking okay, I'm not gonna go there. This is being recorded. But I don't like CryptoPunks, right? For their whole elitist attitude. But in the end, these projects, right, be it the monkeys or be that, doesn't even matter. They are bringing the attention that the space needs, right?
Yeah.
They are bringing the outside money into the space. So you cannot just be sitting there and being like, out with them, this is bad, right? Because there's like a balance of both worlds you need. But yeah, I really like to observe the projects and the blockchains that actually do much more, but they are much more quiet and much more in the background of all of this. And I think this is also a task that token engineers have, right? We need to look at the stuff that might not scream popularity first, right? But instead, they're doing really fundamentally good work. They just might not be the people who go out there and are like, hey, we made something super popular. Look at us, right? That's often not, I mean, Roro and I talked about this, like often the most like amazing people, they're very humble and not very like outgoing, right? But no matter what, they are the ones like really contributing to making the system better, and I guess it's the same with that.
And my favorite quote from Hitchhikers comes back again, like, anyone capable of making themselves president should or no can't be allowed to do the job.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, I'm finding at least a lot of like, I mean, a lot of my interest in all of these articles comes down to, again, like for some reason the framework I'm consistently using is social media, because I feel like it has so much power over lives, and the governance decisions there are something that we haven't really understood that well, or aren't discussing that much either. Because I mean, even the decision of having on the Twitter, you have that space on the side which top 10 like the most spoken about topics, like the hashtag, right? It's like even that decision has the ability to change almost human attention onto certain topics. Like, the entire world's attention is on those 10 topics for that much time. And that's initially that used to be an editorial decision made by probably a person or a couple of people in a newspaper. But now it's algorithmically run in some sense. And our design decisions or governance decisions around those algorithms are not in our control. Like, and the power is like increasing and increasing because they have more users, more. They're controlling, like, in fact, even entire nations' politics is being run on these platforms sometimes.
Absolutely correct. I mean, look at the most recent decision by, I don't know if you guys saw this because I know you're not like big in NFT hunting, but Instagram just abolished its functionality of digital collectibles after like what 3 months, right?
3 or 4 months, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember them announcing this actually during Decentral, or during like the time I was at Decentral Miami, because they had an exhibition with Gateway, which was like a parallel event, right? And they had this huge space, and you know, like NFTs and digital collectibles, like, you know, like empower creators, right? So how empowered are these creators now? First of all, whatever they, you know, minted, right? It was minted to the Instagram smart contracts on Polygon. So it doesn't belong to them, right? Let's just make this clear from the get-go. It never belonged to them in the first place. But even worse, like, how in the future, you know, like, can creators trust announcements like this, right? So if you, it's the same thing with, I don't know if you heard, but Snapchat actually abolished the lens camera. So I think you remember me wearing the digital earrings, right? That's the reason I cannot wear them anymore, because it was an executive decision made within the company not in regards like or communicated even to the community, you know. And it's the same with Instagram.
Right.
And I think this can potentially, because not every one of your fans or followers, right, necessarily understands this like wider connection, right? So I even got like, you know, like very upset messages saying like, I cannot use your NFT anymore, you know? And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, it's, you know, what am I
So
supposed to say?
yeah.
Because I, you know, yeah,
Um,
you go.
Yeah, somebody, let's say in the network or the infrastructure level, yeah, make a decision, and you have to pay the external cost, you know, with regard handling all those complaints. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's bad.
do you have a solution to this?
Yeah, this is why decentralization matters. We are back to
Okay,
square
okay,
one.
okay, yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
okay.
I think this is actually the time where we should probably talk about. I think this is a. Does anyone have questions on the values and risks of governance tokens? I felt this article was actually quite. It wasn't outdated, so I think like the valuable parts and the risky parts they were like understood. But
Yeah.
especially when it comes to regulatory overhang, you know, so much has changed since the article was
Yeah.
launched. I was like, well, this is not really up to date, so you know, let's not look at this part too much. But yeah,
I have
anything
some
in,
points there.
huh?
I have one point in that article, which is I'm not too sure if the reasons why governance tokens may be valuable is a very strong. Vitalik had a very interesting article against this whole point. I think it was Vitalik. He was talking about like the fact because one of the points they've said is rights for future token distribution
Yeah.
Yeah.
and rights.
What's the third point? Why there is a value connected to a governance token?
Yeah, and I think there's been quite a backlash within the community against these kind of thought processes.
Yes.
Like just because you have future control over certain things might not be the reason why you should hold these tokens, and it's actually that kind of narrative ends up having the speculative character on the tokens that we
Yeah,
don't
and
want to
turning
have
it
the
into
speculative.
security essentially. Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
I'm forgetting where I've read this, but I'll bring that article out and send it on our group.
Yeah.
I think it's a
Awesome.
worthwhile read.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, another point is, I mean, the first point was, you know, the right to participate with regard to the cash flow. And I think we already discussed about this. That doesn't have to be the case, right? I can think of some kind of governance token that is not connected to some kind of cash flow or profits.
Hmm.
I think we.
I mean, it was a Coinbase Academy, so it's quite clear, you know, that they have a strong focus, you know, on the economic part. And of course, if you want to open up this comparison between traditional equity shares like stocks, and now we have a token, yeah, then it's quite clear that you try to draw the line, yeah, to the cash flows and participating to profits of some kind of protocol or DAO, but is there is no mask behind this, right?
I think it's like always. The hierarchy of things should matter, right? I had this discussion, I want to say, during NFT London with someone who was designing play-to-earn games. And they had just like kind of left the stage, right, of this like under this whole discussion of why there is like still such a low like user adoption when it comes to play to earn. It should be like so evident like why people would start playing these games, right? And you know, I told him like, have you ever talked to a gamer who's playing a game consistently and over years for earnings? Have you ever, right?
Yeah.
And it's never the reason. The reason is always it's fun. like there's
Yeah.
interaction. I can like stress relief. It's like all of these like emotional points that gamers will start talking to you about, right? And
Yeah.
if in the end they're having more fun trading like CS:GO skins, awesome, right? But it's an addition of the other
Yeah.
stuff, and I think this is how we need
It's
to
just
look
a
at.
cherry on the top,
Yeah.
right?
That's it. Yeah.
Game should be fun. And if I then have some possibilities, to rent out my cards, or if I don't like the game anymore, to sell them, yeah, it's wonderful, and it's a cherry on top, yeah.
Yeah.
But if a game doesn't bring you, this fun element, yeah, you might even call the strategy "play to get millionaire," yeah. It won't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
it's-
also, yeah, like there's a point to be made about there was a very famous folktale story, something about how there's this old man standing somewhere, and there are these two, three kids who consistently are insulting him, right? So this guy comes up with a strategy. He says that, okay, whoever makes the best insult will get like $3 or something, $5, let's say. And the next day he reduces it to $4, then $3, $1, $2, like whatever. Like it keeps on going down. And at some point, those people are like, hey, why should I insult him for free? Like I was getting $5 5 days back. I'm not gonna insult him for free anymore. And they stop insulting him completely. The moral of the story was that if you're doing something just for fun and you start getting paid for it, you stop seeing it as a vehicle of fun. You start seeing it as a vehicle to get money, and at some point, when that money diminishes, your fun for that activity also goes away. Just like when kids are like doing just drawing for fun, sketching for fun, and you start giving them stars, like 5 stars for a good drawing or something like that. Eventually, when those stars go away and those teachers stop giving them those smileys and stars in their drawings, they actually lose interest in drawing altogether. And that is a very, very known fact. Like the second we, convert it to some metric that we start valuing more than the activity itself, it does diminish. Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of, let's say, behavioral economics, right? Where you discuss the crowding out of intrinsic motivation by setting up extrinsic values. That's exactly that kind of story that you already described, Ruan.
Yeah. So how do you do you think Plato-owned games can navigate that at all? Like what's your belief there?
I mean, for me, the most important point is, do I like the game? Yeah. Is it fun to open up the app and to play it? Yeah. If that's the case, this might be it might be nice. Yeah. Because no company can change, let's say, the rules. The story of Vitalik, right? When the company of the computer game changed somehow. The strength of one of his cards or something, and he got upset about that. Yeah. So that is nice that you have now the possibility to sell those in-game assets, which wasn't which wasn't possible with regard to the old gaming scene. So that might be really a nice addition, but the most important point is there some kind of fun to it? I like playing Splinterlands. It's a play-to-earn game on the Hive blockchain, right? And it's about strategy somehow. Yeah, they have different monsters, they have different features. Each game has a new set of rules. You always have to adapt your monster team, and somehow that's fun for me. Yeah. So I spend those 20 minutes a day, hunting, for additional cards and some fame.
Yeah.
And I think this might work. But on the other hand, I think part of this scenery might really be little bit like a Ponzi scheme. And if you do not get enough new users here, I don't see how this play to earn will play out in the end.
I think, you're right. Absolutely right. The thing with play to earn in itself is even the way it's advertised. Like, why do you need to say play to earn? Like, who fucking cares? Like, which gamer in the world really cares, right? The gamer, so your actual audience, only cares about like community, fun, like really like intrinsic, like emotional motivation, I want to say, right? And so I think already like the way it's being advertised isn't. I think we talked about this before, but there's like two forms of design that I see here and there being used in our day and age. There's functionality driven design, which is literally what it says. So, if an engineer like engineers a protocol, it will be very functionality driven, right? Because this is what the engineer cares for. Like, you want to solve the problems that you encountered in the first place with, functionality driven design solutions. And then there's a form of design that's called human centric design, right? This is where you ask, what does the user actually want? Like, where can we fulfill a need, or where can we, close a gap, right? It's an entirely different approach. And this is why I keep like being the person who's like, we need many perspectives as we can get, because we need people who are able to talk to each other and bring both perspectives to the table. We need people who design and engineer fantastic functions, right? That make the user experience accessible and easy. But we need designers who can tell the engineers the function is great, but the way it's being executed right now is not great, because users will not like this, right? So you need and then ideally make a mock-up on how this would work better, right? This is why we need like more eyes on this, and I don't want to diss the engineers in the house, but like less engineering and more human-centric design focus, because design eventually emerged from engineering. There's a reason for that, right? I think they have to be brought back together again, and this is like one of the major goals of this whole thing we're doing here, I think. Yeah. And
I mean, Stella, just to underline your point, right?
Yeah.
At my university, we got a new software solution. It's called a study management system. Yeah, it might have some nice technical features, but it's absolutely horrible. Yeah, if you have to use it. Yeah. For example, typing in the grades or things like that. Yeah, it's horrible from the user perspective. Although maybe the technical part might be great. Yeah, but somehow someone has forgotten to ask those who use the system. Yeah, about their preferences.
No, that's just poor plan. I mean, like building an entire software without even asking the users what they want. Yeah. No, that's so. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's this thing called Build Space, and it's a very cool community of builders. So I actually learned Solidity on their platform first, and I built my first few projects there. I think back then I'd sent Stella some links of like the project I'd built, but the point is like they had this. There are these two cohorts of like where they would get all these builders together. No matter what you want to build, you have a 6-week plan, and you have to get from idea to execution by the end of 6 weeks. And what was very fascinating about them is that the entire mentality was every week you have to let something out. Like every week, publish something to your community, to your Twitter, get some feedback on what you're doing, because every time otherwise you'll spend a month, 2 months, 3 months building something, and then you go for feedback and they're like, wait, I didn't want this at all. I actually wanted something much simpler, which you could have built in 1 week and made way more money, way more like customer acquisition, etc. So he said like, even if it's just one button that you built, just share it and ask, hey, would you like to click this button for this reason? And the amount of ideas you get from the customer itself or the people you're trying to build this for will actually be way more valuable than the amount of time you try to perfect your product before putting it out. I think that mentality was really, really valuable because that's the opposite of what I do. My entire thing is build something perfect and only then let the world see it. But I feel like, yeah, the more you actually start going out in the real world, like it seems like just putting things out actually has way more value than making anything perfect.
Yeah.
Which maybe is the opposite of what token engineering is. But I mean, I guess in some sense, like I think there's a balance to be struck. But because I think while saying this, I realized, wait, isn't entire point while trying to
You might corrupt the idea of token
yeah.
engineering.
No, but that's the Silicon Valley method of like just move fast and break things. It works. It works for certain things, and it doesn't work for certain things. I think figuring out where and when is the more important. Yeah, Sela.
Actually, question on that note to you guys, because you know how Michael Zarkam did this like whole article on why this discipline should be called token engineering, right?
Mm.
And in the beginning,
It was one of the first articles, by the way, right?
Yeah, in module 1, right? And
Yeah.
you know, now we're in module 5, and I absolutely question that this is the right name. I like 100% question it. Like, I'm like, he made such a strong or several strong points why, but now that we've come to this point, I'm like, is token engineering as a discipline name doing this even justice? I don't think it is, because
No,
it
but
entails so much more than just the engineering of a token. It's like so much more that goes into this, because the token might be the result, but what is the actual goal, right? And I think this is how this discipline should be named. It should be named according to the goal and not according to the result. And so I just recently realized this going back through my notes. I was like, damn, I don't think that's the case at all. Like, it shouldn't be called token engineering.
Wait, but what's the like? Can you give me some idea? What did you say at the end? Like, it shouldn't be named after the goal.
The goal.
Or
Like, what's the
The
goal
goal.
of all of this? The goal is not to just engineer and launch a token, right? This is not why we're learning all of this, because this is what we want to get away from, these hyper unrealistic, like, oh, let's launch a token tomorrow and let's do it kind of attitude, right? So what we really want to do as as the end result of many of us who are participating in this is we want to engineer a tokenized ecosystem, right? This is where we want to get to. So
it's almost ecosystem design would be a better word.
Yeah.
Token ecosystem engineering or token ecosystem design.
Yeah, or like, I also think that decentralization plays a big role in all of this, because we need to get away from from centralized power structures. It's not been healthy for most people in the world who have been submitted to this. Like I said, level of desperations are different, right? Depending on which country you're born in or live in. But I just think token engineering as a discipline name, not doing it justice at all, because there's so much more that goes into it. It feels almost like
I think the first article was about ethics, right? The first article was about the fact that engineering should have all these ethics and values with it.
Yeah.
And then they were like, therefore we'll call it token engineering, with the assumption of that the ethical aspect comes with it. Well, if you're looking at Silicon Valley, like software development culture, that's a very different culture. That's just that's not an engineering culture. That's more like more fast-paced.
If you talk to a lot of engineers, that's the part they have already forgotten about in their studies. It's not like that is the part that they always have in mind and think of, right? So I think Michael Zargham, like I think he himself adheres to the highest standards of engineering, and this is why he automatically assumed like everyone else who studies engineering should do that as well. But that is like me thinking that everyone who ever learned design towards the same principles of design that I did at the University of Applied Arts. And guess what? That's not true, right? There are many other ways of teaching design and many other directions who will then take a very different focus on how to teach design. And so I think this assumption made his naming a faulty naming, because it ended up not being universally understood. So even when
Yeah.
I tell people I'm part of the Token Engineering Academy, they are like, "Oh, so like you learn how to launch a token?"
Yeah, that's
And
the
you're like,
assumption. Yeah.
"Ah,
Yeah.
wait, this is much more complex than that, right?"
Yeah.
But this is the assumption they have. So again, right? Like it was again the approach of an engineer through functionality-driven design methodology, right? To look at this from like, oh, what's the function we are executing, right? And this is the function, right? This is the actual function we will be executing. We will engineer a token. That's true.
Yeah.
But the actual goal of this is a very different one, and how it will matter and relate to people, a very different one. So I think we should look at naming from that perspective rather than from the perspective of what's the function we are solving, right? No, what's the contribution we are making with this towards society, right? How does this help? How does this intervene? How does this disrupt society? And not what's the function.
Okay, I have a point here.
Well, that's just me. You don't have to go
Yeah.
against Michael because he's a very
No,
cool
it's
dude.
a slight,
I
it's
get
a
it.
slight deviation because while you were saying all this, I just realized when you're talking about ecosystems, right? Most of the sustainable ecosystems that I mean, if you're thinking about biomimicry and we're looking at um, what nature has come up with, a lot of them like evolution, like, because I think what token engineering gives us is this ability to decentralize certain mechanisms which can enable these almost evolution-like properties
Yeah.
that, like, and in some weird sense, the invisible hand of the market, or like when we talk about, like, let we, I don't know what word is used in economics, but it's about like, oh, let the market handle it, right? Because the best ideas eventually end up winning by they fighting with each other. Do you think there is space for that within ecosystems, within DAOs, like letting creating token systems through which you can generate this kind of almost um, somewhat
Adaptability.
right risk, but like like survival of the fittest kind of situation, not in a bad way, in a way
No,
that
no, I get it. You mean adaptability. So the
yeah,
circumstances change, right? So you need to adapt, right? This is what survival of the fittest is. I think you're
yeah,
making a good claim here. The
yeah,
only I guess the one thing where like the one technology that I have in mind that could potentially work like this is like everything connected to oracles, right? The way a dynamic NFT works is through an oracle that where you can change and intervene with its properties among a certain rule set, obviously, right? You cannot just
yeah,
change everything, but you can change elements of it and keep them
right.
adaptable. So I think, I guess that's what we would be looking for, like even to the point of like when it comes to governance execute. I know you guys know about like my stupid idea of the multi-dimensional passport, which still hasn't seen the light of day. You.
Neither of our projects have seen the light of day, so welcome
fine,
to the club. We're still learning and working on it.
But I was like so convinced I should do this for East Denver, and then everything fell apart.
Oh no.
But point is that on that NFT, that would have been a dynamic NFT, right? That would have constantly updated the influence someone has in governance, for example. So you're contributing more to the leadership board on D-Work, for example, right? The more points you will gather on your multidimensional passport, and the more influence you will get on how to steer certain votes, right? Because you've contributed to the system.
Do this? She was mentioning it, I think, in one of the Common Stack has a score for how aligned you are. Wasn't that this one of the videos of Jessica? No?
What?
I know Jessica had this video in our reading list where she was talking about how Common Stack exactly does this. They have the score for how aligned you are to the Common Stack goal, and if you're not aligned, then you get a lower score, and if you're more aligned, then you get a higher score. How are they doing it? Are they doing it through dynamic
That's a good
NFT?
question. Common
Yeah.
Stack. Can we look this up? Common Stack
Yeah.
You refer to the reputation system, right?
I think
Uh,
so.
um,
I think it's part of the
yeah.
reputation system.
This is there in one. I think in the video itself. Um,
Oh.
in the what is the token video, I think.
Oh man. Mission, vision, design principles.
Okay, but I guess it doesn't matter, right? Whether you use an NFT or use some XP points which are not on chain, it kind of doesn't matter as long as the community agrees that those are valid.
Yeah,
Because
and
like within
also
a yeah.
it's not about agreeing, rather it's about contributing, because I think alignment with the community, the question is if that is actually a good thing, or if we end up in a situation where, you know, just because someone is popular and steers the vote in a certain direction, everyone who wants to gain more voting power needs to then align with that direction. So you might
Right.
see the wrong form of traction, right?
Yeah.
So Elon Musk is influencing the whole world, where some good ideas by some unknown ones, don't have a chance to come up or to grow or to see the daylight.
So for example, the XNet thing that I described to you, this like mobile carrier solution that's entirely decentralized, right? That would be so much better than his like satellites, right?
Yeah,
It would be cheaper, it would be autonomous, it would be a peer-to-peer like network essentially, right? But the probability that this gets ever the exposure it's supposed to get, it's sadly very low, right? The guy who's running this, he's a very sympathetic person. I don't think he's necessarily the type who can talk to stakeholders, for example. Right? And there you go, you already have a problem at your hand. But it's a sad problem to have in a way, right? Because this would be something that really deserves attention and deserves to see the light of day. But because this guy doesn't have like millions of followers on Twitter, it will be much harder for him than for someone like if like Elon Musk would be running this, which obviously he wouldn't, because that would mean he would need to give up power, and people who already have power rarely want to give it up.
They don't want to share it. You know, most people, they have invested a lot of resources to get into power and to get the power. And once you're there, you don't want to share it.
Yeah. Okay, on that note, Lutra, do you think you know about the Pareto principle or even the do you know about the Gini coefficient?
Sure, yeah.
Oh, no.
So I'm wondering, like,
what is that?
Huh?
It's about the distribution of wealth, you know?
Yeah.
It's some kind of measurement tool, yeah? Just for example, think about Saudi Arabia, yeah? Let's say 1 million people, and if you take their GDP and divide it through 1 million people, you will have a really high value GDP per head. That is somehow, you know, it's not really a good measurement of the whole wealth or income distribution in the country, because it's more like you have 100,000 people around, let's say, the monarch, which are very, very, very rich. Each one is like a millionaire, and you have 900,000 who have more or less nothing. Yeah, and to correct for this, you calculate this kind of Gini coefficient.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay.
So it basically
Lorentz curve. Sorry, Ruan.
Yeah.
So you have the so-called Lorentz curve, which would be completely equal distribution, and then you can measure the distance from this equal distribution, and this is the Gini coefficient.
Yeah. So I think a Gini coefficient of 0, if I'm not wrong, would be that everybody has the equal amount of wealth, and 1 would be something like one person has all the money and everybody has 0. So those are the two extremes that you can think of, and then there's a scale from 0 to 1 that decides that tells you basically how well distributed your wealth is in that population. So the reason I brought that up, um, actually now I forgot why I brought that up, but I think yeah, I was saying, oh yeah, I remember the Pareto, like about how like in every system we design, you'll end up having some people that'll end up contributing more or whatever. They'll earn most of the tokens or the money, and they'll actually, even if you decentralize things, I think you'll end up having these pockets of influence that'll emerge just because of either sheer, maybe meritocracy, hopefully, but a lot of times it is because of
Plutocracy.
whatever political situation. Yeah.
I mean, you will always have some kind of whales in the system,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And even
Even
if you
if it's
say,
early adopters, early buyers.
Yeah. So do you think there are any systems that we are developing in the token engineering space which have the ability to redistribute this kind of wealth, or is the innovation not in that sphere at all? Like, because just blind redistribution and decentralization would again lead to like these pockets by themselves, and then what ability do we have to redistribute again? Yeah, sorry, yeah,
so
so.
in other terms, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you can go first if you want, Lutra. Don't worry.
No, please, go ahead,
I
Stella.
just get
Also,
overexcited.
Chalpan unmuted, so maybe they want to say something.
Shalpan, I'm muted. What's happening? Shalpan, what do you think?
I actually find that calculation kind of I really don't want to take you guys back because I kind of like had a few things to say about like some of the subjects, but I really don't want to take you guys way back from the discussion, so I really wouldn't say much, but um I don't have a solution to your question, Roro. So, but I'm more fascinated with how one can, calculate like the distribution of wealth in a country per head, and like how extreme those two ends are. It seems, I don't know. I can't actually find a word to describe it, but oh Christ, sorry.
That's fine, don't worry. We all have that. Roro just lost his thread, so it's fine.
Taking notes.
You want to think on it and go back on it?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Actually, I'm gonna take us way back now. So in one of the first, I'm the asshole. In one of our first sessions, we talked about McConaughey's sustainability loops. Do you remember that? Right? So there has been one thing that has been sitting very badly with me. And I still love this article, by the way. I still think he's right. I just think the way, especially in automated market makers, how we've been thinking about sustainability loops in Web3 is not quite right. And I think I've mentioned this before. Because we give out these like governance tokens or reward tokens. They don't even need to be governance related, right? And then they just stack up, right? Because people are probably gonna sit on them. Like there's not like a lot of people just selling them or trading them because like in a lot of protocols, I think those tokens don't come with a lot of like monetary worth, right? So this is where the loop stops. This is where the loop doesn't go any further. And I think this is the answer to your problem, Roro. It is about truly like looping the system and keep the flow going. So imagine if you had not just one, like token in your ecosystem. And I think this is also my claim that I made during Decentral Miami on the stage. I was like, well, we keep talking about ecosystems, but how can be one project truly be an ecosystem? That would be only herring fish would exist on the planet. That wouldn't be an ecosystem, that would be one species, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about automated market makers, like they are they are blueprinting, like their blueprint stands for an ecosystem, which is not true. They are one functionality, right? they solve one problem, they solve one issue. But the problem for me with all of these like automated market maker protocols, or like even other protocols, is like they're so centered around like one kind of functionality. So let's say maybe it's not just a herring, so one fish, one species. Maybe it's just like everything marine animals, right? But that still hasn't accounted for land animals, that still hasn't accounted for humans, that still hasn't accounted for flying stuff, right? Like there's so much missing. So instead of thinking, there's like one token, one protocol, and that's one ecosystem, I think we need to open our minds, and I think this is then the answer to your question, where you have multiple tokens, right, for multiple projects covering one ecosystem, right? Blockchains could potentially be seen as that ecosystem, but I think they are not very well connected because they are like centralized and
Isn't that
decentralized.
what it is? Like you have the ETH cryptocurrency, which powers the network, and then you have dApps which have their own tokens. Is that not?
I don't see it that way. I think it's way too disconnected still. Like the functionalities are there, I agree with you. Like if you look at this from a pure functionality kind of design perspective, you're like, yeah, sure, there's like there's like the meta structure, the substructure, and like trickles down into the different dApps. That's absolutely true, but not necessarily people who are like connecting and living these ecosystems, right? So for example, look at a pure trader, a pure day trader. They don't care, like they do their initial research, I would assume, right, on a community, but they don't really care what's happening in the community. So as soon as the token crashes, they're the first to sell off, right? And that's kind of the behavior you want to avoid. So you need to build like, I want to say, ecosystems like more in a bubble format, where protocols that can support each other and build safety nets through these support structures, right?
Okay.
And then you actually blueprint an ecosystem. So for example, if one race dies out on planet Earth, I mean, okay, we have a biodiversity crisis, I know I should be saying this, but let's just say there's just one species dying out, not several like every minute, right? Which is happening right now. If it would be one, right, there's like not much of an impact actually onto the general ecosystem of planet Earth. There is an impact, but it is not something that we can even grasp or realize unless it's like verified with data, right? But it's not something, there's like a species of fish dies, right? It's not like the whole world is in shock and cannot recover from this. And this is what it means to have an ecosystem, like avoid the crash of it. But look at a protocol. If there's a token run, right? Like for example in Bangkok last year, they barely could like rescue that ecosystem, right? They barely could, and only because they intervened through like the emergency procedures. But point is, ecosystem design means self-supporting, right? There shouldn't be any intervenence of anyone for the ecosystem to be able to go down, but then be able to recover again.
So like what you're looking for is like some anti-fragile system, like which can take shocks, not get disturbed. But then that's I think one of the questions that comes to my head is, why are we making them ERC20 tokens if we are not ready for people trading it, and like what's the point then? Like why not just have a community like some experience points on like source cred, or like something like uh, the one that you use, I forgot the name. The work. Like you do some work, you get some experience points, which within the community as a central structure can be traded for money maybe for a while, and then when you're ready as a completely robust ecosystem, then you just like how companies don't launch their equity tokens from the get go.
No, they're not. This is like a completely like kind of like reversed mindset for some reason, that you launch your token first. No, you first create value, and when you actually have value, this is when you go to the stock exchange, right, and issue your stock. But for some reason in Web3, all of this has been like reversed, and I think It's not.
I mean, in the hopes of getting away from VCs, I think we're trying to raise money from the community.
Yeah.
But I think if that's done way too early, that also is a problem, and that because you can't control, because you want to give them the autonomy to sell whenever they want, but at the same time you don't, like, if they sell whenever they want, then the whole project crashes before value has been created, and then you're a Ponzi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Ruhan, to give you my answer to your question, which is quite a good one and really hard to answer, but I would say maybe it's possible to implement something like a redistribution mechanism. For example, that those whales, or those early adopters, or they get maybe more highly taxed inside our system. Yeah. So if you want to push forward some proposal, I mean, which is quite common, you have to pay for it. In order to bring it to the community, the proposal, I have to pay with a certain amount of tokens. And one could think about some kind of, internal, redistribution mechanism to tackle those problems.
Or even
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, higher taxes for depending on how many tokens you have. That's interesting.
Why don't we
or a higher
regulate?
percentage, let's say a higher cut of your profit.
Yeah. I mean, 'cause
So
that's how
if you
games
make,
are also,
if
right?
you make a profit, let's say with 100 token you make $1,000 or something like that, you will have to give 10% to the treasury. And if you make from 10,000 and you make, I don't know, 1 million, there is a higher cut of your profits. At least one could think about such kind of redistribution schemes.
So I'm wondering, I don't know if this is the right thought, but like, when we play games, it's like initially it's very easy. And the better you get and the higher levels you cross, it gets harder and harder and harder. But somehow, like, economics seems to be the opposite. Where the richer you get, the easier things get for you. Like, the more levels you cross, you have more more control over resources.
Definitely, and that's a problem.
But it also incentivizes a lot of people to get there, right? And maybe that's the. But somehow games don't lose it because they have that intrinsic value in them, which somehow economies don't. Like, nobody wants to sit for hours and hours digging the soil, but they kind of have to. And I think we have to incentivize them through money, and we have to give them this future. Okay, oh, maybe you'll get crazy rich. I think that's just something that's inherent. But I'm wondering, in governance, would that work? Like, if the more tokens you have, yes, you have more power over voting, but it also is more expensive for you to. Yeah, that's
Maybe
interesting.
you just ask like for more commitment through the rules of the smart contract. So if you've like climbed a certain threshold of token ownership, essentially, this is when you ask stuff from the owner of the tokens, right? So for example, of just saying like, hey, if you hold, I don't know, above 10,000 of these tokens, right? We ask you to become an active member in the community and become like at least, I don't know, 50% of governance participation, for example, right? Like stuff like this. I mean, we can attach those rules, I believe. So
more token power means more responsibility.
Yeah.
I think that should be it. I think that should
That's so interesting, yeah.
Yeah, because
that would be really
like,
great.
If you're a stakeholder in a real company, right, you go to board meetings. So there is a high level of like responsibility and like making informed decisions, right? But also, Shelpen, please, have you come back with your notes? We want to hear.
Robo actually sent the link, so I think I actually understand it a bit more. So I was just trying to understand how like you said the ratio was
Yeah, how it's
So I
measured.
would,
Right? Yeah, it's a very interesting index to calculate. Uh,
yeah. So I just understood that it's more of like everything in between, and how you're calculating how close you are to, like, um, income equality and inequality and stuff. Because
yeah.
like when you initially explained the concept, I wasn't thinking about like the calculations and how like one could fall in between, or like right in the middle of, like, between 0 and 1. I thought was kind of like each calculation. I thought that the calculation would actually be one or the other.
Oh,
So that
okay. So
was,
you got 0 or 1 instead of 0 and like something in the middle. Yeah, makes sense.
yeah. Yeah, so it makes sense to me now. Yeah. Thank you for the link.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. No, but I don't know. I found this so fascinating. I never thought about it that, yeah, we can create mechanisms through which we either enforce that, hey, if you're a token holder and therefore you have so much in theory influence over the protocol, then you better be responsible and take part in the community. Or else there's a tax and you lose these tokens over time. Like the community gets it back somehow. Or that, or yeah, the other one, which was that higher tax for voting with higher power. Um, and does quadratic voting kind of solve that? Yeah, it does, right? Yeah, quadratic voting would also solve that without the taxation method.
I think I know a protocol that actually does something like this. I think I mentioned it to, I've actually mentioned the protocol to Stella. I think it's UMA protocol. So they launched a version, I think it was 2.0, and it kind of like, the way it's set up is that they have, like, when a proposal comes forth and people like with tokens, they have to lock in like whatever governance tokens that you have to lock it in. And then whenever there's like a proposal, you vote. If you do not vote, a certain fraction of your token is taken away from you and distributed to the other people that voted and voted correctly. So I think, yeah. So it's kind of like an interesting thing.
That's a really good
Oh,
one.
that's exactly it, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, so that incentivizes people, and you can't, like, once your token is locked, you can't just take it out. So you can't escape punishment if you refuse to vote.
Right. So that's staking. Yeah. Okay. That's exactly how Vitalik solved it. Like, I mean, as in like Ethereum tried to solve it through staking. Yeah. Fascinating.
Also,
Lutra, you were muted, by the way. Yeah.
oh,
As I just said, vote or lose.
it's more like vote or die.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah.
A little bit melodramatic.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a good functionality, right? Because
Yeah.
like I said in the beginning, like we are also responsible, like in designing all of these mechanisms to teach people how to become more self-responsible, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's just we need this mind shift to happen. So mind shift can only happen if people are being educated in a new way. And I think this is Shelpen has mentioned UMA protocol to me before. Then we actually integrated UMA protocol in our concept for the hackathon, and I was like, oh damn, like this is really good. So yeah, I should probably read. Actually, we should probably all read the UMA protocol white paper.
Yeah, I think can we as a community like maybe make a list for ourselves like of these interesting different voting, not voting but governance decisions that DAOs have made.
That is a really great idea. Want to do it
Yeah,
in
it
a
is.
note?
And 2 or 3 weeks ago, we already talked, about this different kind of electoral system that one might use or try to implement, combined with some token economy. That would be a really great idea.
Yeah, because I think that's a resource. Because I didn't know about this. I mean, the idea that you guys also came up with, the fact that it's been implemented in some form elsewhere. I think knowing about this for token engineers would be really important. To have like a list of these. There was a bribery mechanism that I read about recently in a marketplace, which is very fascinating. Where instead of like if I am a governance token holder and there's someone who wants some kind of vote out of me, they can bribe me with some money to vote on their behalf or things like that. So that also is another incentive to hold tokens, governance tokens. So that's another way to value
Get
tokens.
right, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that's interesting. If you're a part of the community, and someone just wants some proposal to like be voted on, maybe it's a bad thing, but it's also a way to generate value for those governance tokens. Uh,
I'm
I think.
actually, yeah,
Hmm?
I think you're right. And how about, so I will actually, I noted down like your comments as well, so I will put them in on the board. But also I made on module 5, I made a little folder that's called protocols with interesting token related mechanisms.
Perfect. Yeah.
And so
Oh, perfect.
for now I have like common stack, right?
Yeah.
And UMA, right? Was there
Yeah.
something else?
The bribery thing that I don't know if Blur has it, but some I think let me see. Blur bribery. I'll tell you which one. There's a marketplace that has this bribery mechanism, which is also fascinating because that's another way to generate value for your governance tokens. And not everyone needs to own them. They can just buy influence by giving money.
Okay.
Hmm.
I think also
Guys,
huh?
sorry, but I have to leave
Yeah, we should close this anyway.
now.
Yeah.
Should we just talk about the task for next week?
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, one task is find two interesting
Okay.
governance DAOs or something, or like something new that's happened in this space. And yeah, Stella, there are maybe we can open the token engineering. I think
Actually,
reading list. Huh?
actually, yeah, you could extend the reading list, but also for next time, it would be foundations of decentralized governance, social scalability, social choice theory, social choice presentation, and
No, but that's 1.5 hours though. The social choice presentation.
what?
The entire thing, like these are big articles though. 40 minutes, 30 minutes,
Oh, you're
1.5
right.
hours.
Should we just do these 3 for now?
Okay, how about this? Yeah, those three and the arrows impossibility and free lunch. No free lunch one. So we skip the social presentation by Nimrod. We do
Okay.
that next time.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. Yeah.
Can you put it in our chat, Stella?
Of
Yeah, we'll do
course.
it.
Of course, my friend.
I'll do it.